Okay, got it.
So it's 12:30. Should we begin at 12:31?
We should begin.
Yes.
All the speakers are here. Somebody has their hand up, Catherine.
Catherine, I think I just,
we should mute everybody but the speakers.
right.
And apologies for that. But it's for clarity of sound.
All right.
Oh, that's you. Where's she? People are still coming in, so we'll give it one more minute if that's okay.
No, people will keep coming in, so I think we can start.
Okay.
I'll be admitting them.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So why don't we get started, everyone? First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon. And I realize there are people on this call from all over the world, but it's afternoon here in New York City at College. So I'd like to thank you all for being here today as part of Womanifesto. I am Anthony Brown, Chief Diversity Officer here at Brooklyn College. And I'm just absolutely delighted and excited to be a part of this program and to have it as a part of our We Stand Against Hate initiative. I've talked to Dr. Okome about this, and from the minute she brought this up, we were excited here at Brooklyn College. Tunji Fussell, our Associate Director here in the Office of Diversity and Equity, will give Dr. Okome a proper introduction. But thank you all so much for being here, and welcome to Brooklyn College, at least virtually. Hopefully we'll see you here on campus one day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And as Anthony Brown mentioned, I am Tunji Fussell, Associate Director of Diversity and Equity Programs. And thank you again for joining us for this We Stand Against Hate initiative, which has been a fixture on our campus since 2017, when it was started by President Michelle Anderson. And throughout the years, the initiative has featured various lectures, concerts, training, all about enhancing and understanding and celebrating the voices that make up our diverse community. And speaking of diverse communities, I want to recognize the support of our co-sponsors for this event. Departments: Africana Studies, Political Science, Philosophy, Puerto Rican and Latino Studies, History, Sociology, Women and Gender Studies, the Women's Center, and the Ethel R. Wolf Institute for the Humanities, which this is also a part of their Black Lives Research and Action Engagement series. So, Woman Manifesto, Nigerian Women Fighting for Equal Political Space, is definitely a powerful and informative one. But before I begin to introduce our moderator, I would like to ask everyone to mute their microphones. And if you have questions, please load them in the chat. And moderator for today, Professor Olufu Okome. Born in Nigeria, Professor Okome is an international political economist whose regional specialization is in continent. Educated at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, Long Island University, New York, Columbia University, New York, she's a professor of political science at Brooklyn College, CUNY. Past Women's Studies Program Director and past Deputy Chair for Graduate Studies in the Department of Political Science. Her teaching includes a focus on the meaning of inclusive, equitable citizenship in the context of the interplay between globalization, democratization, and economic development. She founded Bring Back Our Girls, New York City, and is the author of many publications, and she's working on a book titled Gender, Power, and Leadership in the African Initiated Church in Nigeria and in her diaspora. Please Professor Okome.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you so much for that generous introduction, Tunji. And thank you very much, Anthony, for your support and for your interest in this subject. I am appreciative also to all the co-sponsoring departments whom Tunji has enumerated. It gives me a very warm feeling that now I'm part of a community that cares about Africa and Nigeria, to have all that support. So today, we're going to, you all know the topic, Womanifesto, Nigerian women fighting for equal political space. I wonder how many people know about Nigeria, but if you don't know, you will find out at least one aspect today of Nigeria's beautiful, complex, and dynamic political history, and also contemporary relations in terms of gender equity, which we're focusing on, and the larger political issues in the country. So I am multitasking by letting people in. Please, somebody else should do that. Today we have a distinguished panel of speakers to address the key questions on gender equity and political participation for women in Nigeria. So I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order. And I did the PowerPoint thing. I hope I find it now. So somebody wants to come in. I hope everybody can see my screen. Hello? Can you see my screen? Yes, I'm assuming.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. So let
Yes.
me get slideshow and from current slide. Okay, so Womanifesto is our topic today, how Nigerian women are resisting marginalization and fighting for political space. And we have a wonderful set of panelists. So from the left on my screen, you have Dr. Lydia Umar, we have Dr. Abiola Akiyode-Afolabi, and Professor Joy Ezeilo, whose permission I now have to just call them by their first names. Thank you, sisters. So here's Dr. Akiyode-Afolabi, Abiola Akiyode-Afolabi. This is a woman who is a dynamo. And I think if you didn't know before, you will find out as we go on with our program. So Dr. Akiyode-Afolabi is the Executive Director of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, or WADC. She's a prominent voice of the feminist movement in the African continent, and she's a fierce advocate for gender equality, for increased voice and participation of women and girls in all aspects of life. Abiola is an unapologetic advocate for gender rebalancing in resources, legal rights and participation, as well as equal social relations. She emphasizes specific needs of women to promote gender justice in her multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multi-cultural context. She's past chairperson of the Transition Monitoring Group, which is a powerhouse of in Nigerian politics. And this is the largest civil society coalition on elections in Nigeria. She's also acting secretary of the West African
Manifesto.
the West African Law and I missed my place, and Religion Society, and a former student leader, as well as the 1990s
is part of Manifesto.
Professor Dr. Umar, mute, please. Oh, so I can't say everything about Abiola. She's a peace and security, gender
I
and
want
law,
the letter. I'll do that
human
now.
rights
I'm sending this thing.
activist. Everybody, please mute. Thank you. She's a prominent member of Bring Back Our Girls movement. She's also, her group, her organization has been recognized as one of the top human rights and justice organizations in Nigeria. I can say more, but please permit me to stop here. Now, Professor Joy Ngozi Ezeilo is a member of the order, right? OON, order, I can't tell, but it's one of the top honors that Nigerians can receive for recognition in national service. So Professor Ezeilo is a distinguished professor of law and also the Emeritus Dean of Law at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. She's also the former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in persons, especially women and children, from 2008 to 2014. She is highly qualified with a PhD and multiple legal degrees. She also is a versatile legal scholar who is recognized as a leading authority in the field of international human rights, especially on the rights of women and children in Africa. She is the founder of Women Aid Collective, or WACO, and Tamar SARC. She's also one of the pioneers of teaching of women, children, and the law in Nigeria. And she developed a curriculum for the teaching of human rights, human rights, health law, and reproductive rights in Nigerian universities. She's an award-winning scholar. And, I have everything listed here that we can fit on one page, but there's more. This is a woman who has worked in over 100 countries across all regions of the world. She, the distinctions that she has received, if I were to list them, it would take up the whole program. So, Professor, please permit me to just say welcome. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Let me just close by saying that Professor Joy's efforts have provided pro bono and legal aid services to over 50,000 women, children, and the poor in the last 25 years. She has an enviable public service record, and she's served and continues to serve on the board of national and international organizations. She's a high chief in Igbo land, and she's fondly called Triple Chief. That is Ochendo Ada Ejijimba. And I'm sure I'm mispronouncing some of this, forgive me. And Nzebuna Chi. So welcome, High Chief, Triple Chief, welcome. Dr. Lydia Umar. Dr. Lydia Umar is a teacher and educator by training. And she also holds a PhD in curriculum development. She's a seasoned teacher. She's served as lecturer at Ahmadu Bello University and for 33 years with the Kaduna Polytechnic. And after she retired from teaching in 2015, she has engaged social activism on a really high-powered level. She has several professional papers and publications to her credit, and she was appointed member of the governing council of the Kaduna State University in 2010. She is also currently serving as member of the Governing Council of Nok University, also in Kaduna State, and the Federal Polytechnic in Kaltungo, Gombe State. She runs a creche and a playhouse, besides being executive director of Gender Awareness Trust, or GAT. She's a development worker. She has volunteered for NGOs, and she co-founded the Gender Awareness Trust in 2000. She's been executive director since 2015. Under her leadership, Gender Awareness Trust has implemented over 70 projects in the areas of democracy, good governance, gender, human and women's rights, public health, reproductive rights, and peace building. She does conflict resolution and human security work as well. She's recognized in Nigeria and internationally, and she's a women's rights defender and peace building practitioner. So I will skip also and say, oh, sorry, I didn't go to, I will skip and say that Dr. Lydia, I'm so sorry, has served as a consultant to develop a 5-year strategic plan for the Peace Commission in Kaduna State. That's a weighty responsibility. She's a leader on women's issues, such as political participation and gender-based violence. She works in Kaduna State in the Northwest zone of Nigeria and all through the country. She has developed a lot of interventions to promote the representation of women in politics and leadership through advocacy. She also is the chair of the International, Regional, National, and Local organizations. She led in 2018 the process of getting the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Bill passed into law in Kaduna State. So welcome everyone. Welcome to our panelists. We are eager to hear from you. And thank you to everybody that made the time to come and be with us today to hear from our noble and courageous panel. So, brief intro to Nigeria. You know, the population is over 200 million. It's the 7th largest population in the world. People are saying that by 2030, Nigeria would be the 3rd largest population in the world after China and India. So 1 in every 43 people in the world, if we're taking the over 200 million, is Nigerian. Then 1 in every 4 African, and 1 in every 7 Black persons. So the GDP and per capita you see, so you see the per capita income in Nigeria is really atrocious, but the wealthiest African is a Nigerian. So the inequality level in Nigeria is profound. I think I will kind of stop here. I shared some of this with people before. Nigeria ranks very low on women's political participation, but I'm not going to steal the thunder from our panelists. I'm going to just go now and say welcome again. And we have various questions for you. And at first we thought that maybe Professor Ezeilo would be held up by trying to get on the plane, but I'm so happy that she changed her travel plans to accommodate us. So, as the moderator, my sisters would have to forgive me when I kind of say, okay, we want to move on to the next question because we have a lot of ground to cover. So when it's time, you'll see me kind of wave my hand, and I'd like you to stop and let the next person answer the question. So thank you for honoring that. I think we'll start with letting each speaker, starting with Abiola, you know, we're going in alphabetical order. Abiola, Joy, and Lydia. I'm using their last names, you know, to do the alphabetical order. So we'd like to know from each of you briefly why you're doing gender work in Nigeria. What kind of challenges and opportunities have you experienced? Abiola? Unmute.
Well, thank you very much, Prof, for this beautiful event. It's a pleasure that you have been able to put this together with the university. It's a pleasure for us to be here. Well, what started in the year 2000, and it was founded by a group of young women, lawyers at that time. I think we were in our late 20s and early 30s in 2000. And for me, I was a student union leader before that time when I was in the university, and I've been working on the issue of human rights, and I've been standing to support students and other vulnerable groups. And so that led me to get a scholarship to specialize in international human rights law. And so I was right there finishing up, and there was this whole story about Sharia and women's rights in Nigeria. And I felt that there was a need for me to come back to Nigeria and also support the voices of women, you know, to work around issues of women's rights and Sharia law. And I think that led to the production I think the first document around Sharia and women's human rights in Nigeria after the case of Safia to Tundu in Nigeria. And of course also led to my conversation around gender and constitution reform. And I think the history of WASU started with that, because our first project was around Sharia and gender and constitutional reform. So WASU was founded in the year 2000. And since then, we've been working to advocate for the rights of women. We believe so much in building solidarity. So we've been working across board, working with coalitions and organizations in Nigeria, because also we're a group of women lawyers, so we also support litigation. We have tried out about 3 or 4 strategic litigation in Nigeria around citizenship, around issues of sexual harassment in Nigeria. We also work around issues of policy in the country. So I will stop here just to
Thank you. All right. So Joy, can we hear a bit about you, about your work?
All right, I'll try to put this on, but if my network becomes unstable as it is, I may be forced to remove the video, but for now, is a little bit is okay. Thank you so much, Professor, for this, putting this together with your team, Professor Okome. I'm much appreciated. And then you can see we have huge participation. That's also an emphasis on the importance of this topic. For me, it's doing gender work or doing feminism came from my personal experience. It's one of those when the person now becomes political, and the experience of my mother early in life when I was still in high school made me to, as a widow, to at a very early age, understood the differences or the low status women occupy in society and the systemic discrimination they face just by the mere fact that they are women. Actually, it made me to go to law school, because then I knew that lawyers are the ones that defend people. And I said, I'm going to read law in order to be a human rights defender. And here we are, more than 3 decades, doing feminism, doing gender work, advancing human rights nationally and internationally. I call it a journey from local to global. And that's what we've been doing. And we're happy that we're impacting lives. But again, on another note, the challenges are too many, or call it roadblocks or barricades. Working in Nigerian environment, advancing women's rights, gender equality is not an easy task. It's like always, like 1 step forward, 10 steps backward. And it's been really, it requires a lot of a lot of always, not only self-reflection, but again, self-encouragement, solidarity, and determination, an indefatigable spirit for you to continue to do, for one to continue to do what one does. Yes, we have made some progress, and in the over 100 years of existence of Nigeria, because the Nigerian state came into existence in 1914, and by 2014 they celebrated the 100th anniversary. I had the opportunity, for example, to do an analysis of the milestones and barricades with regard to women's rights, and I guess we'll come back to it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I know.
Okay, so Lydia, can you please tell us about your work? I've introduced you, and we're going to give the participants links that tell them more about your work. So, Lydia.
Thank you so much, and I must say that I'm really
Prof, we need to see your whole face. We need to see your whole face.
Are you seeing me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I was just saying that I'm really excited to be here and to have this conversation today. And I appreciate the organizers for the show. When Joy started speaking, I was like, what? We've been working with Joy for so many years.
Well, you can probably go off video.
Years. I've never had.
Can you can go off video, because it seems like you have an unstable.
Came from my. Hello?
Can you go off video so that we can hear you?
Is that better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, great. So I was just beginning to say that my story is very similar to that of Joy, except that we are from different sections of the country, which shows that this gender discrimination is widely practiced everywhere in Nigeria. But just by way of background, I want to say that my passion starts very young, and the same situation like Joy. My mom became a widow when I was in primary 5, and the kind of practices I noticed she went through began to disturb me as to why she should go through that. And at that moment, I made up my mind that when I grow up, I'm going to make sure that I work against all those widowhood practices, such as disinheritance. They took away everything that my mom had, because like supposed to go back to her parents' home. Then I noticed also the issue of male preference. At the time we were going to school, if a father had about 8 children and couldn't afford to send all of them, it was the girls that were asked to remain at home and the boys would go to school. So we had so many girl child at home without education. The one that hit me the most was early marriage. For girls, it was okay for them, and it is still in some areas of the North. It's normal for girls to be married out at age 10, 11, 12, but not for the boys. The kind of division of labor also that took place in the home that made the girl to do all the chores and the boys didn't have to do anything. All those things were instigating me from within, and I was wondering, why should that be? Okay. And so when I grew up and went to school also, I found the same thing was happening, and that encouraged me. And in marriage, I've noticed also.
Okay, Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar. Dr.
All right,
Umar,
thank you.
I think I thank you, and I'm so sorry, because what you're saying is so meaningful, and we should hear it. Maybe we should invite everybody back for another session. So thank you so much.
You have the time.
Thank you for letting us know what is motivating you to do this work and why the work is important. We are also grateful that we have a really beautiful country. So I'm now going to turn to Professor Ezeilo. and say Nigeria is a unique country. It has a distinctive political history. It's very diverse in multiple ways. Can you let us know, just like a thumbnail sketch of Nigeria's political history? So brief. We also want to have a brief account of the status of Nigerian women question. What do people need to know that they might not be aware of? So this is for you, Professor Ezeilo. If you can do it in 4 minutes, I'd appreciate it. Unmute.
Yeah, it's a tall order, but I will try.
I know you can.
I know we have a time issue. The Nigerian state came into existence in 1914, and it passed through colonial rule, and then again the independence in 1960, and some of those briefs that you gave. But what is really interesting that has become also a bane of not just the diversity that we have in Nigeria, but also what is the status of women, that also impacts on the status of women, or a lot of implication for status of women, is the fact that Nigeria have over 350 ethnic groups. So you can say is a multicultural and also pluralistic society. And with regard to that also, it has a complex legal system, because there is the Receive English law, there is the Islamic law, then we have customary law on the other hand, then you have the competing, the modern legislation, and all of these are granted recognition by the Constitution, in terms of rule of recognition. And women's status vary. Women are scattered hegemony. They are not homogeneous when you look at Nigeria and the status of women. So, but also even amongst all the ethnic or religious diversity that we have in Nigeria, what is also common is that in no ethnic group or religious group or a particular community do women enjoy equal rights with men. So, so Nigeria also had a history of military rule and militarization of the state, and also gave rise to a phenomenon we call wifism. In the quest for democracy, there were movements and women's movement, both around gender justice, democracy, and development. Meant that also women didn't pursue just like women's right in those military. But ironically, also some of the few milestones, like establishment of Ministry of Women Affairs, and then also ratification of some of the international treaties, happened. But the fact that Nigeria had to struggle for democracy for decades also meant that as soon as we had that democracy and the power shift, women were already excluded from the military power block. So where the power is, women were far away. And even at the onset of democracy in 1999, after the transition we had, transition from military rule to civilian rule, or the democracy we still enjoy, you find that women didn't get to occupy that space. And when just roll that back to colonial times, when even women had already even benefited from women's movement, global women's movement, especially for franchise, for the right to vote, and then even right of women to own property as a femme soul on their own. So at independence, Nigerian women already had the right to vote, except that northern women, the northern bloc, because of religion, didn't want their women to vote, and they didn't vote until 1979, unlike southern women that had that right to vote and started enjoying that. So when you look at, I'm just trying to make the final point and connect the dots here. I know it's sad that we so that people will be able to follow. So now what I'm saying is that the Constitution, like we run, and I know we'll come back to this, was forced on us, was imposed by the military rule. And it wasn't really like a people-centered or people-driven constitution. And that has implication for human rights, for women's rights, for the place and the status of women in modern day Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry to be the bad guy here. I also would like to ask you this question. What's the status of women in law and practice? And how has the women's movement navigated the situation?
Thank you. Here, I will make a quick distinction between de jure and de facto, the law in the books and law in action. So de jure, and you look at the Constitution, apparently it will seem that women enjoy equal rights because the Section 42 of the Constitution prohibit discrimination. But even within that Constitution, you begin to see discrimination against women, whether in the section that has to do with citizenship, with indigeneity, with access to power, with enjoyment of or appointment into certain position. So on paper, you can say the principle of equality and non-discrimination means that women enjoy equal rights constitutionally. But in practice, that is far from truth. And like I said, because of a rule of recognition given to other systems of laws, like customary law, like Sharia law or Islamic law, also that does not often admit of equality or the notion that women are equal to men. So it means that a woman's status may depend on the type of marriage contracted, for example, for married women. And then also, so that means if you're married under the act, you may seemingly have equal rights. If you're married under customary law, it has its own implication. If you're also married under Sharia law, it has its own legal consequences, both for the woman and for the children. And then also the single women in terms of inheritance, right to land, property, there are distinctions. But in a nutshell, women do not enjoy, I will say, equal rights, whether in law or in practice. And women's voices are yet to count in the making of laws, including making of the Constitution of Nigeria. Unlike in the past, and that was the point I wanted to end with last time, where even women were involved during colonial time in the making of the Constitution, including transition. Some of them went to Britain and they were in London, in Lancaster House, negotiating Nigerian Constitution at independence. But now, I mean, women even with the military rule and even at the transition, didn't even make the list of those that drafted the Constitution that the military imposed on Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one question though. The Constitution is being amended. Are women part of that process in any kind of significant way?
Not in significant way, but they are part of it to the extent that elected women representative or parliamentarians are participating. But when you look at the number of women and the numerical strength of women in parliament and in national parliament is less than 7%. So if you have a voice that is less than 10% of those who are making the Constitution, then you can begin to understand why it's so difficult or difficult environment to work and to agitate for women's issue and to really make significant progress.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you because you have been in an advisory expert capacity with the National Assembly. I'm going to come and ask you that question about, you know, what you're accomplishing and what the challenges might be. But let me now turn to Abiola and Lydia and ask the question about the Constitution being amended. What is your assessment about the process and how the process deals with gender equity? So who would like to go first? Or should I just pick on somebody? Lydia, why don't you go first? Okay, is Abiola ready? Because it seems
yes,
like... Okay, so why don't you go first and then Lydia can follow?
Well, you know, Nigerian women have been battling with the issue of the Constitution right from, let me say, the beginning. The first Constitution was 1922, Clifford's Constitution. And of course, history showed that the Constitution was also not inclusive of women. And that ran through even the independent Constitution, despite the fact that women were in London and all other places where independence was negotiated. The constitution is still not well gendered. And of course, just as my sister, the prof, said, in 1999, the constitution came into being by a group of military men, which also excludes women. So my point is that we have had a history of exclusion within the constitution. In NACAFAD, one of the most robust aspects of the constitution, which has to do with sex discrimination, came into the constitution in 1979. So, and it's also still been emphasized and negotiated even up to 1999. So the current constitutional process has also excluded women, but fortunately this year, in the last 10, 15 years, women have been very active in the process of demanding, for a constitution that is sensitive, to them. And we have had different demands, up to about 10-point demands of what we want to be reformed, in the constitution. In the last constitutional amendment process, which took place in the last 2 years, about 5 of those issues were able to make that point, thanks to women who are also part of the constitution drafting committee and women organizations that are also working outside the constitution drafting committee. About 5 issues then came up eventually, which we call gender bills, which I hope Professor Joy is going to speak more about, which were basically speaking to 5 key issues affecting women's rights in Nigeria. The first being the issue of citizenship. As we speak, we have a section, we have a constitutional provision.
Give us a list. Give us a list, because Lydia.
So citizenship, we have issues around indigenship. There are also issues which related to the issue of affirmative action, either in political appointments or in political offices, or affirmative action with respect to political parties. So those are the 5 issues that we're able to negotiate. But unfortunately, those issues were not taken by the National Assembly.
Thank you so much. So Lydia, can you also speak to this issue of the constitutional amendment and your assessment about whether it responds to Nigerian women's demand for gender equity?
Thank you very much. I'd like to first, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
The recent constitutional review process that has taken place in Nigeria not long ago, just this last year, saw a situation where there was a lot of exclusion of young people, because the process itself actually can be described as non-inclusive of a majority of women, most of whom are in the rural areas. The women that attended the review process consisted mainly of civil society organization, academia, the lawyers, and so on. But the real women at the grassroots were left out of the process. And that is why I view that process as non-inclusive. However, a lot of the women issues and gender issues were represented at such constitutional review in the 6 zones of the country. The 1999 constitution, as amended right now, has got a lot of gender gaps in it. That is one of the things that Abiola was mentioning, the 5 gender issues that we have been pursuing, things on citizenship, indigenship, affirmative action, and the rest of them. And it is because the National Assembly did not take those into cognizance. That is why highness even came up, so that we could represent and get them to vote for us. But like you will hear from Joy later, they threw that, they threw our efforts out of the window, and now the women had no choice than to go back to the state level, which is where we are right now. For me, I will say that the process is not very, very inclusive. And the political staff claim that they've gone to every zone. It's not every woman that can leave her state and travel to the zone. So the need for them to make it more, maybe from down upwards will be better. If they had started maybe from the local government areas, gotten the input of women at that level and use, and then gone to the state and the federal, that would have been more inclusive. Thank you. Thank you.
Funke, unmute. Unmute.
Yes, now I'm guilty also. I want to ask Joy this question, because now the Constitution is being amended, and you are an expert advisor to the House of Representatives on Constitution review. What are the key or relevant issues? What are the priority issues for women in the Constitution? And what role did Womanifesto play in this respect? And, you know, if I was going to be rude, I would say, do those people listen to you?
I mean, you know, we are technical technocrats and technical experts, and we put in we try to do comparative analysis of constitutions in the world, and especially in Africa, and then to see what progress women have made in terms of constitutional achievement and inclusion in other parts of Africa. And when we do that comparison, we also bring it to the attention of the lawmakers. So on one hand, just as a prelude, to say that Womanifesto had already articulated positions of women, which made clear, and which I'm sure Abiola will speak more to. But then with regard to the House of Representatives and the Constitution Review Committee and the work around, because it's a major work to amend the Constitution. And for far too long, women had been agitating for inclusion in the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution. So at the level of the committee before the preliminary, we achieved 5 major, I call it milestones. And the first was on the issue of additional seats, that we see an increased representation of women in parliament. And you know, this is very crucial, even if you're looking at Sustainable Development Goal and Goal 5 and indicators for measuring progress by countries. And one of that is the number of representation of women in parliament. And like I've said, in Nigeria, we still have under 10% representation. So that was indeed a milestone. The women worked hard for it, especially one of Right Honorable Nkiru Onyeajocha. And they got that bill passed. So they, at the level of the House of Representatives, it wasn't in the Senate, ab initio. And then when they had the plenary, it was also adopted. Then we had a provision that has been a vexed issue. The fact that Nigerian women who marry foreign spouses are unable to give them citizenship by virtue of that marriage. And this is a right that men have enjoyed from the beginning or from independence. If a Nigerian man marry a foreign wife, they automatically will get citizenship by registration, by natural, and all of that. But it doesn't apply. So that was also was gotten in, and it has been long been part of demand of women's movement in Nigeria, including Womanifesto. So, and then on the affirmative action, it was still decimal, because women have been agitating for at least 30%, which was adopted in Beijing, and 35% in the national gender policy. So the 35% was taken for executive position at political parties level. But when it came to actual appointment of ministers, you know, like secretaries of state, you know, I mean, not secretary of state, but, you know, in departments in the US ministerial position, when it comes to that, it was just mere 10%. And you will agree with me that 10% is not anything significant. It's actually tokenism. But and then also, so there were about 5 major issues. I think I've listed all the 5 that women achieved but it wasn't the affirmative action we wanted. But then it was adopted and it passed very well at the House of Representatives. And when they had the joint session of House of Rep and the Senate, it also passed through. So, but at the plenary, when it was voting time for them to put their, to really affirm what the Constitution, the great work the Constitution Review Committee has done, then the vote, they didn't stand up the votes. Actually, sometimes you wonder whether also some part of the members did vote against what also as a committee they had already adopted. But in the end, women lost all 5, what we counted as a milestone achievement. So it's like back to the drawing board. So again, this was what my statement at the beginning. One step forward and you think we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and all of a sudden it's just like 10 steps backward. So it's always a struggle, and women struggle in Nigeria from colonial. Okay, I think let me stop here. We might come back and then I can make some further comment on constitution and constitutionalism, yes, and why we are still a laggard in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. You are my own true sister. I want to quickly move to Abiola and say, Joy has told us briefly about Womanifesto. What is Womanifesto? Why was it founded? What were the priority areas identified by Womanifesto, and why is it necessary to have Womanifesto?
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Womanifesto is a charter of women's demand, and which came up first in 2005 when there was a national political conference, and women were marginalized in that national political conference, which was then called by the then president Olusegun Obasanjo. So led by Professor Dadisola Akonde of blessed memory under a group called WANACO, the women came together, and I was the secretary of that convening in 2005, where women were brought together to identify issues affecting women, and also use it as a way of engaging the then national political conference. And I could also recall that at that time, women also went to court also to challenge some of the issues of discrimination against women. Now in 2019, so women at different times have also come up with different charter after that charter, charter for political parties, charters at different levels. So in 2017, we started off a platform which was then called Womanifesto as a way of pushing that charter of demands of the Nigerian women. And in 2019, we all organized a big conference, which was called the Manifesto Conference, and had over 2,000 women, where we looked at what we had in 2005 and adjusted and adapted, and then come up with 6 demands. The first one was looking at violence against women, and we're going to use some of these demands to determine what we're going to be doing in the coming period. And one of the issues there was for us to work around declaring state of emergency, establish structures that can respond to issues of violence against women, ensure that in our different ways as organizations and groups, we also support the special courts and the passage of laws. If you look at now, we have had almost 31 states between 2017 and now. More states have passed, 2019 and now, more states have passed the violence against persons prohibition law because of the work that women groups are doing all across the country. So we needed a space for women where we can discuss, where we can agree, on some issues and also act. So we had 5 issues, but issues on women's political participation too. The Manifesto also came up with demands and also ways with which we can ensure that we get women's political participation. The third issue was women and the economy. We also came up with demands to respond to the marginalization that we see in issues of economy for women, the issue of women in agri, the issue of the fact that women till the land and they represent about 70% of smallholder farmers. Still yet, women still don't, 10% of women have lands in Nigeria owned by them.
Okay. So Abiola, we're going to share the document with people who want it. I want you to fast track us through it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing anyway.
Yes.
So the other issue is also the issue of women, peace and security, and also sexual and reproductive rights of women. So these were the issues that we found that are very key and important. And this was produced by the Gender and Constitutional Reform Network, which Professor Joy is also chairing. And so at the last page, you also have the key demands by women with respect to the issue of gender and constitutional reform. So this became like our charter, and we have been using this to respond to a whole lot of issues, in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry because what you're saying to us is really significant, and they are very important issues. A lot of work was done to, first of all, be as inclusive as possible, and then to get consensus, and then to write this up and to put it in easily digestible version. So kudos to everybody that did the work, and I'm so sorry that I'm rushing you through this, but we have a lot of ground to cover. So Lydia, you work on political participation and civic engagement, and you do peace building work. What is the status of women presently in those areas, and what more do you think we can do?
Thank you very much. The status of women presently in Nigeria with regards to political participation, I must say, is a bit embarrassing when we look at other countries in Africa like Rwanda, South Africa, and so on. In Nigeria, it is extremely low. We have no representation of women in governance. Governance generally, and this can be looked at from two ends: appointive positions and then the elective ones. With appointive positions, even at the federal level, not to talk of the state level, is as low as 20%. As against the 30% recommended and adopted by government by itself through the national gender policy. And then the elective positions, we are still as low as 5%, because in our National Assembly, both the upper and the lower house, we have very few women. As senators, we have only 7 females, and we have only 7 out of 109 are females. You have only 22 out of 16 members of the House of Representatives. This is extremely low. And when you get to the state level, the picture is even darker, because Nigeria has 36 states, and 15 of those states have 0 female representation in their state houses of assembly. You have about 9 of those states having only 1 female in their assembly, 2 females in about 5 states, 3 females in about 3 states, 4 in about 3 states, and only 1 state managed to get to 5 females out of 25. So you can see that the situation is really, really bad with regards political participation of women. But I want to say here that even at the political party level, the situation is not better, because most of them only give one position they call woman leader in their hierarchy, their leadership hierarchy, the executive, which is extremely bad. Now, I want to say here that we are still 20% below, and every effort women have made seem not to pay off. And some of the reasons behind that, I must say very quickly, behind the low representation. First of all, we have what
Okay, so Dr.
we have
Lydia,
as male-dominated
Dr. Lydia, please
yes,
help
yes,
us and give us like a final word on this, because we still have a lot of questions.
Is that we are not, it doesn't look as if our situation is likely to improve in the near future. And I'm saying that the women's efforts has not been recognized at all. And the things that will make it worse is monetization of the political parties.
All right, thank you so much.
We're going to, system.
I want people
if you
to
look at the amount of money that has been,
Dr. Lydia, let
yes,
people ask questions, and in the Q&A, you'll have an opportunity to also give us more information, because we still have a lot of questions for you, and I want the audience to be able to also engage you. So please forgive me. I would like to know, Abiola, and also Joy, what's the connection between this Womanifesto and Occupy NAS? And then Occupy NAS has ended. Has it ended? Why did it end? What is happening now? What are the next steps to accomplish the objectives of Womanifesto? Actually, all three of you can chip in on this, but then I'm going to be very brutal, so make it very brief.
Yeah. Yes. Of course, like I was also, so to say, in the room and the table negotiating this law, being an advisor and technical advisor, and then based on also what Nigerian women want and my experience as a lawyer, professor, also working in this area. But then for the Charter of Demands and Womanifesto, those demands have been persistent. And that's what women want. And when women fail to get what they want, especially inclusion in the constitution or in a law that the law of the land that they will also be bound by, then they went on protest, rightly so, for not getting their fair share. And that, if it had stopped, the major actors on that will have to speak that. But I believe that the fight continue and the struggle continue, and it's not over at all. And Nigerian women will not give up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Abiola, quickly, and then Lydia, get ready, because I'm going to give Abiola just a little time.
I think you should give us a little bit of time to explain this nexus.
Okay.
As I said, the Manifesto itself is a movement, and we all convene and speak to one another like on daily basis. We might not have seen ourselves for a year, but we talk on daily basis and we strategize and develop whatever we want to do. When the House shut down those bills, we came back on the manifesto and said, are we going to sit down like this? Are we going to wait for elections? We said, no, tomorrow we all have to be there and let them know that we can no longer, continue to accept being pushed away as Nigerian women. So it was a decision of the manifesto movement. And that was what happened. So the second day, the National Assembly was shocked how we were able to mobilize ourselves. And that's the power of women. And that's the power of the movement building. And we were able to get to the National Assembly to insist that there's no retreat, no surrender. And I want to say that up to today, we are still on it. There's no retreat, there's no surrender. We do it and do it again. By standing there on the 8th of March, I also need to mention that because we're there in numbers, over 1,000 women on a daily basis, standing and shutting down the National Assembly, insisting that the National Assembly should accept the gender bills. On the 8th of March, they moved back and they rescinded three of those gender bills, which they are yet to vote for. Another 14 days later, or after a month later, they came back to appeal to the women to allow them to vote on those gender bills. As we speak today, women are working at the state level. One of the issues that the National Assembly raised was that we didn't lobby them enough. So we have women organizations and groups Gender and Constitutional Reform Network, National Coalition on Affirmative Action, 100 Women Lobby Group, Women in Political Forum, FIDA, and other coalition market women joining at state levels to ensure that they reach out to the Senate and the House of Reps. As of 2 days ago, we have sent them a 7 days ultimatum to respond to us on what is the next step. So we are not surrendering anything. We are still going to go on to insist. They have agreed that they are going to vote on 3 of those bills, and we're waiting until when that is done. Public officers cannot come publicly, make promises, and then just walk away and think they will not hold them accountable. Manifesto would continue to hold the National Assembly accountable on the issues of women.
All right, thank you so much. Now, Lydia.
Let me just add here that the connection between Womanifesto is very clear in the sense that Womanifesto leadership is one of those that initiated the entire idea of occupying NAS. They were part of the organizers, who were part of the mobilizers, and also implementing the actual occupation of the NAS protest. And more importantly, it is that the 5 gender bills that are the issues that Manifesto has identified much earlier before this, before the occupying NAS. There are issues that we have been working with. I will recall that during the last constitutional reform review, those are some of the issues that we presented. And so for Manifesto, it was like just work continue. From what we have been pushing to this time around, that it was so obvious that there was a need to engage the legislators. Engage the legislators, Manifesto and other women groups did, and we continue to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So, I think I'd like to know how many women came out for these protests? And then what is the, I think Abiola talked about women from women from various sectors. So how many women, you know, what kind of occupational or demographics?
Let me say that there was a national movement that we had almost 16 states across Nigeria. Lagos had a huge crowd of over like 3,000 women where they came out and also stormed the State House of Assembly. Professor Joy led the Enugu theme, and they had over like 1,000 women also, you know, in Enugu who also stormed the National Assembly. So we had in Zamfara, we had in Sokoto, we had rapper led almost 6 states in the north, you know, to occupy various places. And at the National Assembly itself, we had women in business, we have women in politics, we have women in academia who joined that movement. So on the 8th of March, for example, there were over 3,000, you know, women in front of the National Assembly. And I think on the last day that we called off the National Assembly protest also, we had over, you know, 2,000 women, you know, in that. So the Manifesto is a huge movement. And so what is happening at the state level currently? We are mobilizing as many women as possible to be part of the Manifesto movement. I think the time has come. This issue is about our dignity as a woman. It's about our being a Nigerian. It's about our Nigerianity. And we cannot continue to be rubbed off, to get that to be rubbed off, you know, on daily basis. So it is time for women in Nigeria to resist and get ourselves to the place of our pride. And that is exactly what the Manifesto movement is pushing for.
So I hear you, and I want us to move quickly because I'm sure you want the audience to ask questions, right? Yeah. There was a lawsuit also that was brought by some women-led NGOs against the Nigerian government. What was this lawsuit about? What are the issues? What's the outcome? What's the way forward? Again, I'm asking all 3 of you, and now I'm going to let Lydia begin, and then Abiola, and then Joy. So, sisters, quickly. Or maybe, does Abiola want to begin?
Thank you
I
very
can,
much.
if you want.
Oh,
The
okay.
lawsuits,
Okay.
no,
Anyway,
I'm on.
the lawsuits, what sees one
Abiola,
of
I'm
the
on.
Abiola,
what
Lydia
is-
has come on. Wait.
All right.
I'm on.
Lydia, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the lawsuits that was brought by some women-led NGOs against the Nigerian government. That litigation was actually led by the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, and it's been on since 2020. And the issues there have to do with creating additional seats for women to increase women's representation in the National Assembly, because currently it stands at 5%, like I said earlier. Another issue was to enable Nigerian women to transfer citizenship to foreign husbands, a right that the Nigerian men married to foreign spouses enjoy, and also to ensure affirmative action of at least 35% in political party administration and appointive positions across federal and state levels. Another issue was the provision of the minimum of 20% in the ministerial appointments or commissioners, and then to allow a woman to become an indigene of her husband's state.
All right. So
after 5 years of issues that were presented, and the relief was granted by the High Court, and the implementation of the National Gender Policy provision of that 5% affirmative action policy of the federal government has now been granted by the court. Because the argument of the court is that failure to comply with that 35% is a violation, direct violation of constitutional provisions, like in Section 42, Section 147 and 144, as well as the Article 19 of the African Charter on People and Human Rights. And so the High Court has ruled in favor of women, declaring that this anti-women constitution is discriminatory and unconstitutional. Thank you.
all right, Dr. Lydia, let's give Abiola and then Joy a chance to tell us also aspects that they would like to point our attention to.
Anyway, let me just, thank you, Dr. Lydia. Let me just chip in here. We are one of the plaintiffs. So the Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center would say, and this was led by the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, that I am also a director, and it was at a board meeting after the 2019 elections, where we were assessing what happened to women in the 2019 election, that we then decided at that board meeting that there was a need to do an impact investigation to see whether we can contest the issue of discrimination against women as it is in Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution, and also within it with the National Gender Policy, which was passed, which was adopted in the year 2006, in Nigeria, to say whether Nigeria is accountable to those instruments and also to the Constitution. And that was what led us to the Federal High Court. And of course, the Federal High Court, what the Federal High Court has done is to affirm the fact that the national gender policy is potent. A country will not go and pass a policy, adopt a policy and then do something else. And that in all appointed positions, that it becomes very important that women should be at least 35%. I want to say that there are other organizations who were part of this: the Women in Politics Forum, the National Women Trust Fund, YAGA, Center for Democracy and Development, the Vision Spring, FIDA. So about 6 or 7 organizations were part of those for the victory. And for us, especially coming at this time, it's a big victory, because what that is saying is that what we're negotiating at the National Assembly was for 20% in appointed position. But what the court had said is that women are entitled to 35% affirmative action based on the national gender policy. And good enough, in March, on the 2nd of March, Nigerian government also adopted the revised national gender policy for 2022. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, Joy.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yes, it is a victory for all. It's a victory for women in Nigeria. It's a victory for what women represent and what they fought all these years. But now the problem for me, and as a lawyer, I wish that the government will respect and implement fully the decision of the court, because it's one thing to get a judgment, another is to have that implemented, again, given the complexity of the issues involved and the fact that the 2023 election is already around the corner and the primaries have started. And if that is concluded, I wonder how, but I think also women that have taken this thus far are prepared to go to the next level to make sure to hold the government to account, or to raise the accountability stake, because it's one decision whose time has come. I recall in 1999, and that is how many years ago, when I also led a court action to ensure that women's affirmative action, women's right to participate in the government of their country is respected. And yes, we lost in 1999 when I took that action. And I recall the judge saying, women don't need to go to Beijing, that I argued in a Beijing fashion, meaning that Nigeria wasn't ready to implement the Beijing Declaration and the program of action that recommended affirmative action. And now in 2022, we have seen another court. And by the way, my classmate at law school, the judge, which I'm very proud of, the decision and the fact that he really gave teeth to the existing legislation. And we hope that the government will do the needful. And if not, Nigerian women are also ready to take it to the next level and ensure full interpretation and implementation of that decision. Because if that is frustrated, a right to effective remedy, it then means that at regional and international level, we can also seek for justice, because Nigeria ratified those regional and international treaties, and they have state obligation or responsibility to implement, to enforce, and to fulfill women's human rights. Thank you. We lost you.
Unmute.
Mute, yeah.
That's my next question. I'm so sorry. And, you know, I would like it to be like a wrap-up question, because the two other questions I have are informational and they're going to be very brief responses from you. What other work are you doing on gender equity, each of you? How does it all connect with Womanifesto and the struggle to accomplish gender equality for Nigerian women?
Yeah, for me, access to justice is very important in the work that I do. The fact that women whose human rights are violated can come before the law court, can, in search of justice, can get justice and can get effective remedy. And that's why I work as a pro bono lawyer. That's why my organization, Women's Aid Collective and Tama Sexual Assault Referral Center, deals with the issue of not just sexual and gender-based violence, but in terms of deal a lot with enforcement of law. And to that extent, we work with all administrators of justice, whether in the criminal justice system, to train judges, to build capacities of police and other law enforcement agencies that are involved in administration of criminal justice, to ensure that they have the right information and that they have the capacity to render gender justice in cases involving women's rights. And it is paying off, because with some of those training and engagement with judges, with lawyers, with the police and the prison officials, we are seeing greater judicial decisions that respect women's rights. And we have recorded there is a complete change in tide, for example, from decisions that previously did not recognize women's right to inheritance to having decisions, a number of them, and cases that now recognize that a woman have a right and a constitutional right to inherit land, housing, property, just like their male counterparts. And then, of course, there is a number of other work that I wouldn't have time to deal with, but the Sexual Assault Referral Center one is one also close to my heart, and I'm currently the chairperson of Sexual Assault Referral Networks Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask everybody to give us more links where we can find more information about your organization and also the collective work that is being done on gender justice in Nigeria. That would be my last question. Abiola, can you tell us what, my question, what other work are you doing on gender equity? How does it all connect with Womanifesto and the struggle for gender equality and equity in Nigeria?
Well, one of the areas that we are focusing on in the coming period is to strengthen the women's movement, because we believe that with alliance building and all of us coming together, speaking in the same voice, we'll be able to address a lot of issues that are affecting access to justice and also that are affecting the effectiveness of policy. So we're engaging in a lot of policy advocacy. We're insisting that resources must be engendered. You can't just pass 31 laws across the country and you don't put money there. It's time for the country to put their money where the mouth is. So we're going to be working with policymakers to ensure, and also building women's movement to be able to make that demand and ensure that there are budgets. As we speak today, the budgets of the Women Affairs is the all the budgets in Nigeria. So we're going to be insisting, and we're going to be ensuring that we build movement around making that demand in the coming years. So building the women's movement is one of our core mandates, and ensuring that it's policy advocacy and intervention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, Lydia.
Thank you very much. Part of our work is sensitizing and building the capacity of women, particularly women aspirants and women who intend to take active and effective part in elections. And also haven't discovered that violence against women increases during political. Sorry?
Yes.
I haven't realized that violence against women during elections is a serious issue. We put violence against persons prohibition law in Kaduna State, and what we are doing right now is to give it life, because like we all know, it is possible to have a law, but unless it comes alive and is being used, it does not amount to anything. So we are trying to enlighten the women that there is this law that exists and that they could use it, especially when they are affected or when others are affected, that they know. But more importantly, also our work in the area of women, peace and security has to do with the implementation of Resolution 1325, the United Nations resolution, which Nigeria happened to develop the National Action Plan, in fact, first generation and second generation. And I happen to be one of those who developed that now. So we are looking at how far we have come in implementing the National Action Plan. And then we are thinking of working on a third, reviewing that second one and coming up with a third now. Those are some of the work, and they connect directly with Manifesto, because Manifesto wants to see the participation of women in all sectors of development.
All right, thank you so much.
Security.
Thank you. So now, this important question for all of you. Where can we find more information on all these issues? Now, if you can share links with us, it would be much appreciated. You can also compose, information packages that we will then share with all participants later. But quickly now, 1 minute each.
We have a lot of our information is on our website, and then we have newsletter, and also some of the laws that we have been involved in are actually on the internet, either under the state government or the federal government website.
All right, thank you. Now, Abiola and Joy. Oh, Joy, you are muted, just like me before.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you so much. What I've tried to do is to put also on the chat. You can quickly go to the chat and then get our information. We have hotlines, we have live chat, we have our website with information and necessary links. Is www.wacolnigeria.org. Wacol, W-A-C-O-L, Nigeria.org, and it's all out there in the chat, and you can copy it with the hotlines that we respond to victims and survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, and then also to provide legal clinic and counseling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Abiola.
Anyway, I'm also going to put that on the chat, our websites and other handles that you can link up with us. I'm also going to put that on Womanifesto so that we can also link up with the Manifesto. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, if people want to help, what can they do? Again, 1 minute each.
Yeah, I think we all have to get involved. What is very crucial for us succeeding in the fight to advance gender equality in Nigeria and beyond is solidarity. And that is where I want to appreciate you, sister, for this, for giving us this global voice to talk about Womanifesto, to talk about the status of women in Nigeria, to talk about women's political situation in Nigeria. And I think we all need to, in solidarity with women from global north, women and men, I wouldn't say, because men do feminism as well, that in solidarity that the global north should support and continue to support women from global south to achieve also what they have taken for granted, because the fighting for basic rights, I mean, it's very basic right to survival and development is still a major issue. To be recognized as a human being with full legal personality, with a status in your dignity as a woman and a full-fledged human being is still a problem. So, and we have all these rights at international and regional level and even the constitutional provision. But then when it comes to implementation, there is a gulf between the law and practice. So we have to continue the agitation. We need a lot of funding to continue the work we do, and funding remains a greatest challenge, even in a post-COVID era. And you know, the impact on Nigeria with economic recession, with all the borrowing, with the Bretton Woods institution, it means less and less constrained space for work for women. Civic space is shrinking, and funding for women's work is also shrinking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Lydia, what can people do to help if they wanna? Oh, I don't see Lydia. Oh, I see her. So Lydia, can you unmute and tell us quickly?
Yes, in view of the situation, the insecurity that we are facing in Nigeria now, we need more and more women to get involved in the sector of women, peace and security. And so we will appreciate a lot of support to be able to organize all the international, regional, and national frameworks that Nigeria has signed on to, so that we can bring support to the thousands of Nigerian women and girls that are in captivity right now, either with Boko Haram or with bandits, or have been kidnapped, some of them from their schools. And this is becoming very unacceptable. It looks as if we need help to be able to deal with these issues. But the issues cannot be dealt with unless the people know the provisions, what is there for them to do and what they can do. And I think this is one area that we will appreciate support.
All right, thank you so much. Now, Abiola, quickly. Everybody is not listening to me on this time constraint. But Abiola, now.
Yeah, well, I would say I will adopt what my sisters have said. I agree with them entirely that what we need is alliance building. And I also want to say that there are a lot of organizations, because of the work that Womanifesto does, working in grassroots communities that need a lot of support. I think we need to get those supports to women who are really building Nigeria, but which they are not in the cities. So we don't know the amount of the work that they are doing. I think that we need much more support, for women organizations that are working across the country to be able to, if Nigeria gets it right, I am very sure that other African countries will probably do better.
Thank you so much. But maybe Nigeria should learn from other African countries.
All right.
Because, I mean, Rwanda.
I think they should learn. They should be humble enough to learn.
Yes.
Nigeria first and others.
So thank you so much. And I thank everybody that is here present for your patience, for your wonderful disposition. Now it's time for questions and comments. And I hear there's one question in the chat. So Tunji, can you help us?
Certainly. We have one question from Janet Johnson to everyone. I'm losing my earpiece. Okay, my students read and discussed the Woman Manifesto today. Masterpiece. One notable omission, I understand how complicated the context is, and I wonder if there was any discussion of including LGBTQ rights in the Woman Manifesto, or whether this is not an issue that can be raised even amongst women's groups.
Great question. So now the three speakers, who would like to go first?
Well, I think I will go first. If we look at the Womanifesto, there's an area that is dealing with sexual and reproductive health rights, and where we add demands, in relation to issues of women's reproductive rights, then some other issue. I think one of the challenges that we're having currently in the country, why this might not, because I want to say that Manifesto is not in any way opposed to the LGBTQ rights. Maybe the reason why it didn't come up here is because there's a law in Nigeria, currently as lawing us putting such advocacy in a document of this nature. But I want to say that we're not in any way, as feminists, opposed to the rights of LGBTQ.
All right, now, Joy.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I will adopt what my sister said. And when it comes to diversity, sexual orientation issues, and the position of Nigeria and some of our African countries, I think we know where they are in AU and how some of these issues are contentious. And but importantly, when you have to put it in print, you have to bear in mind as a lawyer, what are the existing law and the extant law. Currently, the law that was passed in 2014, that is called Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, even prohibits advocacy for LGBT rights. So that already can be a ground for prosecution. But that have not stopped women in terms of adopting feminist principles and human rights principles, that is that principle of diversity, equality, inclusion, and non-discrimination. And that is, as a human rights lawyer, as a gender activist, as a feminist, I also respect and believe also in rights of everyone, and it's important that we recognize that. And even persons with disability too, because even though the law might be a bit more sympathetic to them, but for women with disability, they are also doubly jeopardized.
Okay, thank you. And now, Lydia, would you like to chip in, or should we? Okay.
Yes, please. Personally, I'm not opposed to LGBT rights, because people are entitled to rights of diversity. But the stage at which we are, especially in the very elementary stage of getting people understand that they even have sex and reproductive rights. right now in the northern part of the country, some women think they cannot even determine the number of children that they can have. They think it's the prerogative of their husbands. And so we are just taking it one step at a time. I think at this stage, it is a bit premature for us to begin to working with introduce this LGBT rights to them. So we just keep hoping that they will understand that people are entitled to their rights, and even if you don't believe in it, you need to respect it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I see a hand up, and Tunji, if you can also just help me scan and see if there's any other questions. So I see Florence Binige's hand up. I'm sorry if I'm murdering your name. Your very brief question, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I really have more of a commendation and a way forward than a question. First of all, I would like to appreciate the organizers of this event. This is a very laudable one. The first, I think, is taking place to help the downtrodden in a country that is having helpless people like the women, the children, and the physically challenged. And this event will go a long way to support our cause. Secondly, I have to appreciate the three speakers, the three leaders, women leaders in Nigeria that are fronting to see that women's rights are upheld, especially this time around where we are trying to have the constitutional amendment. We really want the women's rights issues, the 5 issues on ground, to be placed on record in our constitution so that it will have a long-lasting position for women's rights. So I thank you so much for all you have discussed, and I just pray that this event will help us to push to go ahead. Like they rightly said, I think Abiola mentioned the issue of grassroots women. It is very important to really involve the grassroots women, and to involve the grassroots women due to the diversity and the larger population of Nigeria needs a lot of funding. So we have been trying to squeeze ourselves to see what we could do to achieve these rights. If we can get support, I think it will go a long way, because every lawmaker has a constituency that they represent. And if they are held bound at their local constituency, they will know that it's not an international issue. It is a local issue. It is an issue involving people that have voted for them, especially the women. So I thank you so much, and I pray that we have some support to continue this struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Florence.
Thank you so much, my sister. Do we have any other comments or questions?
There are lots of positive comments that I've seen.
So maybe read some of them to the whole group, please.
Okay, certainly. Give me 1 second to go back up because I have it in a different section. Okay, basically, like I said, a lot of positive things. Excellent meeting, excellent conversation, great panel, excellent moderation. Thanking everyone so much for this insightful session. Lots of shared information, lots of requests for information, incredible discussion on the status of women in Africa via the Nigerian case study. Thank you, Funke Okome and Brooklyn College for putting this event together. And pretty much a lot of, like I said, positive comments. And I'll check again to see if any last questions. And if you'd like to say anything, or if you'd like me to begin to close it out.
Yes, I think what I want to get is kind of like a very brief list. What are the next steps? Because I heard from Abiola that Nigerian women have given a 7-day ultimatum, right? To the National Assembly. Is that right? Abiola?
Yes, we have written to them to respond to us within 7 days.
Okay, so if they don't respond, what is going to happen?
We will re-strategize.
All right. And what is your thinking in terms of what you might do?
Well, as of today, women are in the 36 states across the country, organizing and mobilizing. We will decide on what to do. We will decide on what to do. Let me just say that.
But I think also that the social and legislative advocacy continues. There is no shortcut to agitating for what is our right. And the elections are coming up, and women are determined to be included and not to be left out in 2023. We want to make progress, and we have to demand and raise the gender accountability stake.
Thank you. And Lydia, final word. What do you see as the next step?
Yes, my final word is that, yes, we are talking about women political participation in general, but we cannot win this in isolation of all other developmental issues. So, and that is why the idea of having a movement is very good. Women groups that work in various sectors are all part of it, and they are all part of Womanifesto. And that is why I particularly like working for Manifesto, because together we can do a lot. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So over to you.
No surrender.
Yeah, okay.
No retreat, no surrender.
Okay.
Aluta continua.
Victoria Asata.
All right.
Yeah.
The struggle continues.
And victory is certain.
Very certain.
So,
yes,
thank you so much. I am very appreciative that you responded to our call, that you gave us real incisive analysis and an idea of your work. Thank you for bearing with me when I was kind of rude and saying, okay, wrap up. But we are really over time now. So I'll turn it over to Tunji to say the final greetings.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's definitely an understatement to say that this was an important discussion, and we're certainly only limited by time today. I mean, we could talk indefinitely, but since our time has come to an end, I really want to thank everyone again for coming together in our audience. Thank Professor Okome for organizing this. I want to thank all of our co-sponsors and especially our panelists. For all of you who contributed, who shared information, asked questions, and shared positive comments. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on your location. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to
Thank you.
you can turn on your video. I'll take a screenshot.
Okay.
Okay.
Especially speakers, but I mean, everybody, if you can turn on your screen, let me try to take a screenshot. I learned that from going to the fixed politics thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I can do what I said out. Hey,
Okay.
everybody, well, I see a lot of names. Videos, please. Okay, if you can. So Tunji, can you help me and take screenshots?
Sure, I certainly can.
Thank
Let me
you.
make my screen big.
So thank you so much. I think we should have more of kind of fora so that we get to know from Brooklyn what's happening in the African continent and around the world, especially the global south.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more.
Focusing on the gender aspect of things enables us to see the full picture. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.